you know, and, you know, you get.
If it's
two
changes,
of
we
those.
have an
When I was on
election
the
it,
council
put on-
center, that's the way it was done.
I don't believe so.
Never ran, they could have many seats.
I think it's an action of the
Vote
council.
getters.
Yeah.
Probably back
We
by
didn't
ordinance.
fill the seats,
I
there wasn't any-
don't think it has to be. That
Versus
would get,
small.
that would get serious with that. We'll get into that.
You wouldn't have to.
I don't think so. I don't think so. I've never gone through that.
They're the power.
You know, and then you
Well,
can phase it
we'd have to
in pretty
look at
easily
state
too,
law
even
and see
if
if they have
you
to
write
vote
it.
or not.
You decrease the amount of councilors.
That's a good question. We need to know
Whatever you
when
want
we
to
get to that.
phase it
I
in where
personally would like to see
people
more
are
people
serving out.
willing
Like,
to
in this upcoming
get
election, I'm
involved
gonna be
in
up for election,
cities,
so my
accept
seat
it to this
at the point of that election disappears, and then I'm running in one of those four.
I think that's something that's not looked at before.
We can't really do anything about this tonight.
Okay.
Just beginning this discussion.
Just report it.
It's gonna be on Chris.
Hey, Matt, I was just wondering, if you did it that way, who would represent the individual? I mean, right now, Kent Miller is my representative for my
Everyone.
ward.
It's-
So,
the way
so
I'm-
if I had to go and had an issue or problem, who would I go talk to?
Whichever one you like better.
It all went large.
I mean, you
You
can
get
get
it as a
that.
councilman, I know when I was on council, I got approached by people from other wards. You know, it's not just people out of your ward.
Whereas in the current system, he has a bit of responsibility to people in his ward, so if he torques off his immediate neighbors, or if I torque off my immediate neighbors, I'd like to vote it out, true, but, you know, if doing that is still please the majority of the town, I mean, in my system, I could get reelected if the majority, if a good number of people still like it. And so I'm still accountable to the voters, it's just, to me, it takes away losing a person that's got a passion that just may not have a majority of that ward that wants to get in.
Okay, Chris?
Okay, in chapter 6, on page 6-1, in the first paragraph, we talk about not less than 14 members or more than 25. I think the chief has indicated that he thought we had gone to 27 members, and would prefer that to be 27. I didn't find the ordinance on it.
Well, and a lot of this, Chief can correct me if I'm wrong, is addressed in the fire department bylaws. So I would like to make sure that what we have in our code matches what they're actually doing in their bylaws. Some of it is different. So I don't know that the membership is addressed in your bylaws, no. So that would be you guys doing that. But anyway, some of this stuff is different than what they're actually doing. So we'll get that addressed.
So that was covered down through section 6-114. In 6-115, that's going to take some changing also to, we've not found the ordinance adopting fire code.
Oh, we don't have a 6115.
Yeah. You don't have.
Oh, I'm sorry. Article 2, 6201. So it's fire prevention. And we've not found the ordinance that adopted the Uniform Fire Code in 1994, so that's not correct. There's a fire code that could be adopted. Don't know that the chief wants to or the city wants to, but there is an international fire code also. We can talk about that at some point. Yeah, if you look at that handout that the chief had done up for you. Most of this is there's going to be an open burning code that's later on down the line. But a couple of things we want to talk about tonight. One is anhydrous tanks, and in this chapter we talk about storage and handling of LP gas, but not of anhydrous ammonia, and the dangers that presents. So what Chief is suggesting is you can read there.
Steve, you recommend put this in the code?
Well, yeah, I think it needs to be addressed. I mean, we need Katie's help to make it all work, and we need, if you have advice or thoughts on it, need your help as well. But I think it's something it's kind of been a code of the woods is you don't stay in town with an anhydrous tank, and you don't do this, and you don't do that. But there's nothing in writing that says that, so if Joe goes home and goes to bed and leaves his tank set out in front of his house overnight in a residential area, there's really nothing that says he can't do that. It's just not a good idea, but he can do it.
Well, it states in here, all, tanks on wheels, like nursing tanks. They gotta be maintained or located on the premises where the gas is.
Right now, our code, we don't have anything in our codes.
That should be,
Well, that's what we're talking to you about tonight.
yeah.
Yeah, and here's what Steve is kind of suggesting to think about.
Yeah, Bob, to answer your question, those tanks are highly regulated by DOT and the federal government, and they have to be pressure tested every 5 years
Yes.
from the NTIP program with DOT, and everybody around here complies with that. But there's a lot of safety built into those tanks, excess flow valves and breakaways, things like that. But those are pressure tested every 5. And that just went into effect 5 years ago, I think. And so, most people are on the second round of doing pressure testing on those tanks. And you will pick up a tank that you'll have a crack in and start losing pressure. So you do find things every once in a while, bad valves and things like that. But, they're pretty well maintained. And then the dealers have to maintain an RMP plan with the emergency response of federal government that has how much you have on storage on a daily basis, on an average, and how many nurse tanks you have at that location. Like my location, I have 2 RMP plans for the city of Beloit. I have one on my location on Elliott Street, and then there's an RMP plan on Cottonwood Street. And in conjunction with ASMART out of Illinois, they help us monitor our tanks. Then I fill out reports every month that I get from them that, we don't receive it by rail, nothing's been changed on the plant. And so we get those on a monthly basis to keep our RMP plan current, if there's any changes. So there's people, in the Department of Ag, we're regulated by them also. And then we have the inspections that they inspect the facilities, and if there's nurse tanks, they'll check hose. If there's hoses, they'll check the dates on the hose, they'll check the pressure relief valve to make sure those are only good for five years also. So they'll check all those things, and if there's a deficiency, they'll take the tank out of service. And then you gotta fill out a report and send back to state. So it's pretty highly regulated by the federal and the state government on the tanks themselves.
Yeah, I understand that.
Rick?
Tom, when those guys are pulling the tanks through town, do they have to follow the truck route? Or can they go anywhere they want to?
I think at this time they can go anywhere they want, can't they, Steve?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then that's what I think they're
There
doing.
is zero
Zone that down, and I think I don't have a problem if you take them out of nurse tank set in front of your neighbor's house. Every once in a while, there's a small leak, a little bit of that liquid goes a long way.
Yeah, we had a tank one time tip over out here. We found out how it smells pretty good.
Yeah.
If you'd like, we can create just a short section in this chapter addressing the ammonia tanks and how they'll be transported around town.
You basically want a specific route, and then for nobody to be able to leave one set in front of their house overnight or something.
Yes.
Or park it and go to Plum Creek and eat dinner.
Yeah. Or if I have one hooked on, I can't stop by my house for lunch in a
Yeah.
residential area and go in the house.
Okay. Jumping down to the bottom of Chief Rugg's page there, talk about firewalls we're only talking about the firewalls in the downtown central business district. The old codes used to address those firewalls. The new codes, it's changed. It still talks about fire codes and firewalls, but in a different way than the old code did. And Chief likes the way the old code suggested that. And also, I think the old code required flat roofs at that time in the central business district. Doesn't anymore. So that's what Chief has suggested here. Maybe you'd like to add to that, Chief?
Not really. The thing that is the reason for the firewalls, and the town's full of them. I mean, that's just the way the town was built, because the town burned down at one time. Or it didn't burn down, but any of the wood structures burned. So they went back with stone, built firewalls to the standard of the, at that time, whatever the national building code was or whatever. And we've got a book that spells it out exactly how it was done, and it's good. But as the thing of it is, I'm not saying that if somebody wanted to build a building downtown, they need to build a 3-foot firewall of stone, but they need to have something that's of that standard. But the next thing is, the thing that worries me the most is the bottom part of that is what's happened to the ones that are already there. You know, they've been compromised many times, I'm sure, since they've been built. You know, they put a walkway through there, or they did something, and that's what gets you in trouble. You know, shooting just
Hey,
take the whole
was it
block.
Scott City here a few years ago?
Well, Osage was one of them. but-
Those days, there was a fire in town, and the fire traveled from store to store to store because they'd compromised those firewalls. And, gee, I can't remember, it was half a dozen stores or something that burned up.
Well, this
Most firewalls downtown on the rock buildings are 24 inches.
What was that?
Protect the other building,
Yeah.
and then they went to 12.
Yeah.
When we built where the Ace Hardware is, it was recommended 12-inch block.
And,
Same way with where Florida's got his storage over there on that butter.
The materials and the technologies today don't require 2-foot rock walls. A good 4-hour firewall, you still want to be about 8 inches thick, 6.5 to 7 inches thick. All right, if it's constructed properly. So you get the same fire protection with a cheaper, smaller wall than we did, 60 years ago. But again, like the chief's saying, some of these stores down here, the walls are compromised, either the basements or upstairs, where contractors have gone through that wall for air conditioning or plumbing or whatever. And so there's air communicating between those sections, so that firewall is compromised. It's subject to fail. Those are the kind of things that we want to try to get to and look at and prevent if we can. But a lot of it's going on I'll never know about.
On this new building over here, what's the requirements on that, one up next to that other building?
Fireproof materials, basically, steel. You can get by with steel.
But didn't they put a thick wall there?
Put a stick wall, that's gonna be covered, I haven't seen what they've covered it with on that inside, they cut it up before I go around over there. But yeah, the other wall is,
In other words, they're gonna cover it with something that will require a certain length of time before it burns through.
exactly.
Well, should
And
there
a lot of
be-
times you won't be able to prevent it from burning clear through, but it gives the occupants of those buildings time to get
I
out.
understand.
Should there be some inspections done then
Yeah.
to see about these firewalls? I mean,
See,
Yeah.
in the past, it was just common practice that the building inspector or the fire chief inspected the firewalls, and that's in the code or in the ordinance book that we have. But it's not been done. And that's what I'm recommending is,
yeah, I agree.
That's no longer in the codes.
Well, if that's. the
well,
problem,
it's an
yeah.
old ordinance. I don't know if it still exists on the books today, but it was there then.
Well, if they're not capable their job, we need to see that they are, I would think. That made that rule for a reason, obviously.
Well, like I said, I haven't seen it in our existing codes. You know, it's not in the building code. After the structure's up, then I'll walk away and I don't go back until it's an unfit structure.
Well, I would be in favor of, either one of you, doing some kind of inspection to reinforce that. I bet any of these old buildings down there would go up like a tinderbox if they lit.
Well, you know, if the person owned building side by side, you know, he sees no problem with blowing a hole through that wall and
Yeah.
so he can store his stuff on both sides. But then he sells them and it's 30 years later and that hole's still there, you know?
Isn't that what kind of happened over here where it used to be joint effort? Didn't they cut that hole, or was that already there? Between them two, where that youth center is now and stuff.
There's several stores that, Stell, Pester have opened up, gone through theirs.
I'd like to know what's the next step. So we got inspections going on existing downtown businesses, and let's say a business owner doesn't want to make the changes that have been identified by the inspectors. Is there teeth in the ordinance that you're talking about?
Well, there would have to be.
Of course.
There's no point doing an inspection if you can't
Yeah.
enforce it.
Well, if it's a fire hazard, I mean, you gotta,
The ordinance would still have to specify you got so much time to correct the deficiency and to code. And failing that, then there would be a penalty, you know.
well,
Right now, like I said, I've got no authority to go back into a
well, I
structure.
agree with Steve, we need to have some method.
Maybe you as the chief, fire chief, can work together to make the code up for us.
Yeah, we can.
That, he's the one that has to go there when it happens.
Indeed.
You're the one that have to inspect it
Yeah.
to save him safe, make him safe, so if you work together, then
Yeah,
you make
yeah.
a pretty good deal.
And it might be something we do jointly. Anyway, we'll get together and talk about what needs to happen there. And while we're on this, in the city boundaries, we haven't seen anything that, and I'm sure there is, I just haven't seen it, an ordinance or something, maybe a resolution that talks about servicing District 4, which is outside the city limits. That's not in the code here anywhere. And was there a contract or something they signed, or was an ordinance approved? I'm not
Yeah, I've never heard of it.
not aware of one.
For what now?
District 4.
District 4, which is outside the city limits.
Yeah.
Our fire department, those folks out there contract with the city for fire service.
How long have they been doing that? Do you have any idea?
Since Sunflower was built out there, Ackerman's was built, long
Long
time.
time.
This also includes the feed mill, Hubbard's mill, right?
Hubbard Mill is not on contract.
Okay,
That baby is Fire District 3's.
okay.
They won't come in, and we ain't servicing, except for one truck. You just can't, because they're not in contract with the city.
I guess my opinion is that would need to be some sort of a contract issue, not necessarily in our code,
A code issue.
but I don't know where those documents.
Well, it was just a question that
exist.
the chief had, and I couldn't answer, and thought we'd talk about it.
That's what we're doing.
Okay.
That's got decades.
Yeah.
Okay.
What, Steve, one time didn't the co-op at the mill, didn't they have a contract with the city?
Never have, Bob. Never have.
And Hubbard doesn't want to be in it.
They don't want to come into the city, and they don't want to have a contract with the city for protection.
What's the contract cost, Steve?
Well, it's based on the mill levy, based on, what is it based on?
Yeah, no, you're right. It's based on your mill levy. It's a formula, and I don't know off the top of my head. We have a number of people who are on that. It's based off. It's a certain percent of your mill levy would come to us. It's trying to basically mirror, if you were inside the city, what would your property tax be toward that surface?
Fire service.
Right, so and I forget how we do the formula, but we have numerous people on that.
You know, if
so-
people aren't in the city limits, there's lots of them, I say lots of them, several, that pay that price annually for that service. But, Bob, if you remember that, the 2 times they were both on Veterans Day, we were out there and fought those fires in those tanks and on the pellet line. City sent them a bill. Yeah, for our services. They,
Yeah, the city sent Schaumburg bill too when we went out there and held until fire district
but
come
we,
in.
you know, I'm just saying that that's the thing about Hubbard, that we just can't go out there
Yeah.
because they're out of the city limits. Other than mutual aid. Now, Fire District 3 asked us to come and help them. We would go in 1 truck and 6 men.
Any more questions on that? Section 6208,
Was you gonna do, no, fireworks?
yeah, section 6208, fireworks prohibited,
Okay.
What page?
6-5.
We already
In
changed that.
6209, right.
Yeah.
That goes
Oh, yeah, those two go away because,
They got repealed.
yeah, but while we're on fireworks, Steve had an issue with storage of fireworks. And the classes of fireworks that are stored or may be stored in Beloit without restriction right now. Steve, you want to address that?
Basically, there you go again. It's just common courtesy that the people that store large amounts, you know, the Eagles and whoever, as an example, they call us and they say, okay, it's in such and such building, and so we know it's there. But we just want to make sure that if there isn't somebody that's putting on some type of a big display, hauling a whole load in and filling up a storage compartment with it somewhere, we need it to where it's the law that they have to notify, you know, the city offices or Chris or myself or someone that it's there. Because, you know, that's a potential problem, you know. It's not necessarily that it's gonna blow up, it's if something gets to it to make it blow up, you know, and we need to know it's there.
Do you have any set amount that you're looking at stored?
Well, that's what we need to work on. I'm just throwing
Because
it
you
at
know
you.
one person that does that, and obviously you could contact him and.
Yeah, but I mean, I just feel like it's something that would, for the safety of the firefighter as well as the neighbors,
What about gunpowder?
well, there's an ordinance on it, on quantity.
I was gonna ask you about that. Are you sure nobody's keeping? I know there's several people that load their own.
Oh, sure, but there's, in the ordinances, there is that one that we looked at the other day that talks about how many pounds
Yeah, I saw it.
per, you know.
5 pounds or something like that.
50,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, I mean, it's covered, now whether it's covered enough, I don't know.
And that's another one of the things you don't even know about.
No. But, you know, gunpowder, I don't know what you had experience with gunpowder on, but it's not a big bomb.
Yeah.
It's not
No.
like fireworks.
I know it just,
But is there anybody else besides, what's his name, that has a big display?
Not that I'm aware of. They do theirs annually, or try to.
And I would think, you know, knowing that he's there, you can contact him and say, look, you need to notify us when you get all that stuff stored somewhere.
As long as we've got something to enforce,
Well,
we
you
can do
need,
that.
you need orders for everybody,
Yeah.
not just one entity.
Well, yeah.
Well, and if they're what he's buying locally and a fireworks stand or something like that, that's not the class we're talking about. We're talking about a kind of a commercial class of
Like what
fireworks.
takes place at the lake.
Exactly, like a professional fireworks display.
Well, like this year during the football season, I didn't have a problem with the fireworks going off, but I was noting that fireworks are going off without notification of the city council for a permit. And was that the same person that does the
I have no idea.
display? Because I mean, there is somebody else that's
This is the first time I've
storing
heard
firecrackers.
Speaking of fireworks,
You have never gone to a football game?
You can hear
that.
them.
Competition.
who set off fireworks
missed a great
Saturday
season.
night?
Yeah.
Does anybody know?
What's that?
Somebody set off fireworks Saturday night.
It's been going on a lot.
They've been going on.
Time usually after the game.
Oh, I was
Not
looking
in my
down
front
at
yard.
the pile of lights and I thought somebody was shooting. I mean.
Cookie ball field are right over my street.
Yeah, the enforcement is.
Maybe that's when we got there.
Well, with your consent, and we'll look at that and try to come up some language to include in this section, the place of those that we've.
Chris, and that ordinance will be that the person storing the fireworks has to contact.
Probably have to get a permit,
Yeah.
and there will be some restrictions described in that section.
So these
Yeah,
places,
What about the structure itself?
Perhaps, I don't know, until we research this and find out what we need to do, you know, it may be prohibited in storing it in a residential zoning district. It'll probably be restricted to either a general commercial or an industrial zoning district. All right, and no buildings closer than, say, 50 feet, I don't know, we're just gonna have to do some, we're gonna have to do a homework.
these places like Eagles, Heart Choices, they store, I assume, store them throughout the year somewhere.
Yeah, but those are that, I don't know, class A, for lack of a better term. They're family-friendly kind of fireworks.
But the
They're not
fact-
big commercial.
The fact remains, though, you're right, Katie.
Big
but-
quantity.
But most of those people, I know the Eagles for sure, they just sell it out.
I think that's-
When
They just
get
get rid of
too
it.
many in, they get rid of it.
I didn't know how that
And
worked.
I don't know
They're
about
not sure
Heartbeat, what
what
they're
county.
doing. Well, I do too know what they're doing.
That big
Yeah.
trailer.
They're
It's in a-
pre-sold.
It's in a red semi-trailer at Dunston Trucking, out
Oh.
on the north side. That's where it is, yeah.
Okay. Storage of LP, anybody have questions or concerns on that?
It's like barbecue grill, gas tanks.
Yeah, well, yeah, basically, it's the same gas, liquid petroleum. But occasionally, I've had several calls to store large tanks, 500-gallon tanks or 1,000-gallon tanks in the city limits. Code permits that.
I assume there's some houses that's their sole source of heating.
Now,
Is that it?
there's one commercial tank, a 500-gallon commercial tank, and there was a temporary tank, a large temporary tank, while a home was being constructed, and they used LP in that. That's, like I said, it's temporary, it's going there.
Fairgrounds has one.
Yeah.
Is there still one at the cable tower?
I don't know.
Because we put one in there to run the generator.
Yeah, there's no requirement for you, you need to have a list of who's got them and whatnot. It's permitted, it's like, well, yeah. Okay. For our next meeting, we'll talk about nuisance abatement, chapter 8, or chapter 7, rather, being health and welfare. That's nuisance abatement, and then, whatever else behind that. Open burning, we'll talk about in 2 weeks, 3 more. Three more chapters. Oh, we got 16 chapters. 3 more months.
So then, 7, 8, 9, is that what we're doing?
7, 8, 9. Yeah. That's the plan. If we get thinking they're gonna take too long, or we got a big agenda, we cut that down or something.
When are they gonna start working on the street?
It's
Gotta be done, it's gotta be done by the first of the year.
So we got an extension. You tried.
Been stated, it never gotta be done by the first of the year.
Yeah, you gave us, you gave us another extension.
You can. You can.
The guy from the we need to do that this spring. We need to get it done.
They gonna put that where they're coming in now? Serpent's a new one?
Okay.
Okay, now is that gonna be